And go ahead and start. Thanks.
Okay.
Oh, here, just because we just started recording, do you want to just quickly do the intro again?
Yeah, sure. Let me know when he's back in. Yeah, so thanks everybody for coming. Today's SIPCO, Friday, 18th November. Yeah, so here today is going to be an open discussion. We're going to have a hopefully just a quick one. And today we have our guests who proposed the Bitwise SIP, and I'll try to get him on to talk about the SIP and inform the community what it does and how it benefits Stacks network. So just for those who might not been here before, I think everybody's been here before, but not that guy. So here's where we propose where we can advocate for our ideas. We can get feedback. We have lots of smart people in this room. So if you have any SIP ideas, here is the place to do that. And here we can get things moved on, get feedback incorporated in. Yeah, here to help each other, very collaborative process. And is it back in yet? Oh, he's connecting. So yeah, because the cycle can only be here for half an hour, so I'll let him open his mic and introduce himself and tell us about this Bitwise SIP.
I guess that's my cue.
Yeah. Oh, we see you. Great. Yeah.
Sorry, guys. No Bluetooth crap down on me. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Kyle Whitrick is my name. Introduce myself. Yeah. What can I say? I come originally from Seattle. Been a developer for about 20 years. The last 16 years I've been in Sweden, working primarily within fintech. Working in last years, I've spent a lot of time in IT management, governance, compliance, and so on. But I've always kept up my passion for programming. So yeah, a little bit about me. The Bitwise SIP, yeah, where did that come from? What I was actually trying to do, I decided to learn in Clarity because I really like the Stacks values and the fact that it's anchored on or secured by the Bitcoin blockchain. I find that some of the Ethereum prices the gas prices are too high. You have Solana, you have Polkadot, and so on, and those feel a bit too centralized for me. And that's why I landed in Clarity and Stacks. And one of my first projects that I wanted to do was build RBAC, role-based access control. And what I found difficult was there's a lot of examples out there where the roles are basically hard coded into the contract. And I wanted to get away from that. I wanted to be able to have an owner of, let's say a DAO, for example, be able to create new roles and create grantors of those roles and so on. A lot of the examples today in Clarity are using maps, one map for each role, mapping a principal to basically true or false. With Bitwise, and I think that primarily Bitwise and Bitwise OR will be the used methods, or at least the popular methods. Being able to store all of the information about your roles in a Bitwise flags integer, so to say, being able to set the bits in one integer, since correct me if I'm wrong, but I couldn't get lists inside of a map to work to be able to store roles for a principal. And so I did make this work, but the code was very convoluted in the end. And cost a lot more than I thought it really should be, since it's native primitives being used or available in Rust, at least. So that's that's kind of the quick one. And then I saw that Zor bitwise exclusive OR already existed. And then I figured, well, if we would add a couple, why not at least cover the most common bitwise use cases and just make sure that they're available. Yeah, I'm not quite sure which level you guys usually present on, but is there any questions regarding that, or does anybody want to add anything?
I just wanted to say thank you. You hustled really fast to get that PR and that SIP ready to go in a very short amount of time. And thanks for working with us to help meet our high standards for inclusions in the blockchain, as well as follow the governance process. So that was excellent.
No, and I have to thank you guys a lot, you, Jude and Bryce, for all of the help in the process. It was really a crash course, but it was really fun to get to learn how you guys work and how SIPs go, how you usually work with SIPs and so on. So really, thank you. And I look forward to more in the future.
Igor had a question.
Yeah, Kyle, thank you very much. I'd be more interested in, things that, if you had to do this again, what things would you like us to change or improve about your experience?
Honestly, I can't say, given the rush nature of this, I didn't really understand where you guys were in the process, and that this was at the very end. So sorry for any frustration that might have come to the cabs with regards to that. But like I mentioned to Bryce, I work with a lot of startups, and Bryce said, sorry for the chaos. This isn't chaos. This is, to me, very structured and well. And like I said, I really appreciate all the help and encouragement in the process. I'm also new to Rust. So Jude, thank you for some of the code suggestions and so on. And to help. Maybe more easier to find documentation on exactly consensus breaking versus non-consensus breaking. What's the process? What are the standards? Maybe the documentation exists. I just didn't come across it.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Right now, things are kind of scattered a little bit between different repositories, in part because Stacks being a decentralized project. You'll see Hero, which is one of the major players in this space, owns some part of the stack. The Stacks Foundations owns some other part of the stack. Trust Machines owns even more parts, even further different parts of the stack. The SIP process is meant to be like the thing that binds us all together. Kind of like, the IETF RFC process or the W3C standards process. Still pretty new though. It's inspired by the designs of these systems, as well as the designs of the governance processes for like Python, Bitcoin, and Linux. But the system, Stacks 2.0, the system we're working on now is just coming up on just 2 years old. So this was probably one of the first pressure tests of the governance process, and I'm glad to see that we managed to get this thing from finish from start to finish in the space of about a week. So that was excellent. But yeah, like for sure, we'll try to make things easier to find in the future. Hero, I just asked you to unmute.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't think we heard you.
No, just want to say really thank you so much and welcome to the community. Here we are a bit more like Bitcoin, where things are a bit decentralized. So I think that's our ethos, and that's why sometimes you may not find the information in the centralized place, but we do what we can to collate all those information. But also at this, and also like if you have any question about like developer stuff, or like you want to get to know the Stacks ecosystem a little bit better, I think like we can like offer, we can like give you like a few people maybe, or one person like to buddy you up and maybe onboard you into the ecosystem quicker if you like. I thought. But yeah, really welcome to the community, and yeah, really grateful that you contributed just like that. This is what we want, and we're trying to encourage for these community SIPs to come up. So it is part of what I'm currently working towards, to try and get these support system in place, so that we can have more and more community SIPs like yourself come up. And in fact, like another person, Werner, he's also proposing something from the community. So anybody in theory should be able to propose some ideas. So yeah, that's what I'm here to facilitate and try and help.
Yeah,
well.
no, I just, that hangs on my comment earlier, that it's really appreciative, even though there was some not blowback, but maybe frustration at last minute things, but you guys being willing to push that through and accept community contributions and squeeze it in, really, it talks a lot about the community, that you want community contributors. If everything just gets stopped, no, we wait to the next version, or and so on. It makes it harder to contribute, or it makes a barrier of entry higher and discouraging. So this was a really encouraging process for me, I think.
I'm just sorry that you picked an aspect of the system that required a SIP to ship that through. Just because, so you asked earlier, consensus breaking changes. Because of the way the Stacks blockchain is built, one of the design principles it adheres to is that the code that you see on the blockchain is the code that runs. But that also means that, you know, the Clarity virtual machine is on the consensus critical paths, because in order to correctly process a block, it has to correctly evaluate the Clarity code. But in order to do that, it needs to, the Clarity VM needs to be aware, for example, of the bitwise operators that we add to it. And adding such things is necessarily a breaking change to the language spec, but that has this cascading problem of being a breaking change to the consensus rules as well. And that's why we have the SIP process in place, especially for these things. Not everything requires a SIP though. Like most, like things that don't break consensus or that aren't trying to become ecosystem-wide standards, they don't need SIPs. SIPs are mainly about things that you intend for other people to build upon. For example, there's consensus breaking changes like this. Another major tranche of SIPs are smart contract interfaces, like for example, the standard for fungible tokens or non-fungible tokens, SIPs 10 and 9 respectively. Those things are candidates for SIPs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's a really good process. I believe in process, especially community-driven process with voting and so on. So hats off. I think it worked really well, and I think it's a good process.
Thanks.
And it's just the first year, like we have this sort of wide spread sort of governance process. I would say last year we had one CAP. CAP stands for Consideration Advisory Board. So essentially last year we had a panel of governance guys sort of have to go through and review this. But this year we have economics, technical, governance, and we've extended so many number of people into this process that they can all have the professional opinion over this review, including the community guys who are not even on this panel. So anybody can, and I try to amplify, like people can jump into the GitHub and comment on any of the pull requests or any of the SIP text itself. So yeah, I think we try to to let people have their say. But what I'm actually, my message was, this is beginning. I see it almost personally like this is only the beginning of the governance process, and there's just still many things that we learned this year. So it's a very iterative process, and if you have an idea how it can be even better, like anybody can chime in and say, "Oh, I suggest slight changes to SIP 000, which is the SIP process." So people can go and amend, give an approval, the process itself.
Yeah, it's a living organism. Processes, they're not intended to be fixed forever.
Yeah. I actually have a couple of questions from a sort of community, sort of informative perspective. So what does this Bitwise, what can it unlock? Like, would it be, I think you mentioned that it could be used for DAOs, or would it be used for like DeFi or NFTs, or what sort of thing could sort of the end user benefit from this function?
Yeah, I mean, it can benefit, I think, primarily if we're looking at flags, which would be using yeah, Jude, I did. Let's see. I think I just lost my train of thought. NFTs, DAOs, there I can see consolidation of a bunch of variables into, for example, is initialized, is whatever. Many parameters that are true or false can be consolidated into one single variable in the contract. And that'll save both space and probably even execution costs. So that's kind of what I was after when I was looking at the role-based access control, trying to skip as much extra clarity functions for something that is mathematically so simple. Here I can pop it out to Bryce and Jude as well, who have been involved in this. If you guys have any, this was my main use case, and tossing in the other operator was just kind of a no-brainer for me to make sure they exist. Do you guys have any other use cases that pop into mind?
One thing that actually Bitwise operators think would help a lot. I'm sorry, I see people raising their hands here. It's kind of a domain specific thing, but a lot of NFT projects that exist out there have a desire to be generative. So by that I mean, like, you know, the NFT image you see or the digital asset you see is a function of some data on the chain. It's procedurally generated from that data. Packing that information into bit fields is certainly a lot more economical than trying to make a massive tuple of Boolean flags. You could also do computations on that data. For example, back in the day, there was CryptoKitties, for example, and one of the operations that was supported with CryptoKitties was the ability to breed two of them together to make a new one. Under the hood, that could easily be done with just Bitwise operations. You could XOR the two genomes together, for example, and get a new genome. And that would be a likely unique genome. So stuff like that, like fast on-chain computation of new state that is deterministic, but also not entirely predictable for the purposes of building NFTs is one thing that springs to mind for me.
Yeah, no, that's a great use case, Jude. I was just going to jump in and say I didn't have anything specifically in mind for contracts, but I just kept going back to like things that I've seen in other programming languages where, you know, doing something with these types of operations is a lot easier than trying to do it using basic math. So like the things mentioned on this bullet point here, doing encryption or different you know, maybe something related to communication, any of those are going to be a whole lot easier if you have these type of operations for sure. Not that they can't be implemented using the existing functionality, but it would be a whole lot uglier and harder to understand and more costly without them.
Yeah, for sure. These bitwise operators, like a single one is extremely cheap, on the order of just adding two numbers together. In fact, maybe a little bit cheaper for some of them, just in the benchmark functions that we created.
Yep.
Certainly a lot better than trying to do, if then statements over a series of bools.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So let me try and rephrase those into like simpler language for the folks at home. So would it be correct to say like maybe for a builder perspective, it's probably easier to write and deploy and interpret what's in the contract?
Yeah. If
Other things.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say primarily from the reading perspective. Like I mentioned, I got this code. I got it to work, but it was very convoluted and difficult to read. So the biggest thing would be just being able to easily understand what's happening in the contract.
So that could hopefully help builders to maybe it helps audits. Do you think? Like
yeah, builders, it's less code, less lines of code, which means less storage, less computations, less calls, function calls. And then, of course, clarity being one of the goals is being clear and able to read, which was one of my arguments to Jude in the issue, the first issue. So I think that those two things together, as well as the possibilities that it opens up. Yes, it's possible to implement using the existing functions. It's just not pretty.
Yeah.
Yep.
And would it be correct to say because there's less lines of code, potentially the size of the contract, therefore how much storage it needs on chain, therefore the nodes would be needs less storage node wise?
Yes.
Cool.
Less lines of code means smaller files.
Less bytes, right?
Yes. Yes.
That's good. I think that's well, I'm quite not into, but as a Bitcoiner, maybe the node size is super important. So I think this will help the bitwise functions. Great. So user could potentially does it benefit like SIP13 like a semi-fungible token? Because that's a more like evolving sort of
maybe you could do something like one thing you could do with this, for example, is if you had a one thing you might do with this is you could have a very compact representation of the set of items in a semi-fungible token that were minted and not minted, and that could just be a bitmap constructed over a set of integers, which is a lot more economical than trying to have a whole bunch of Boolean flags that you have to load and store each time.
Cool. And so if all things being equal, if the contract is smaller, would it mean potentially if the user, the minimum execution sort of gas fee should be in theory lower for the user?
Oh yeah.
Cool. Right. So yeah, that's good. So the builders can benefit from writing less code, easier to understand stuff, and the user benefits from more flexibility with token stuff on the contract side of things. And the user, if all things being equal, obviously still depends on the overall blockchain, like how many transactions there are in total. But if all things being equal, user could benefit from a lower gas fee.
Yeah, definitely. And if the alternative is dealing with lists of Booleans as opposed to a bit field, we're talking like 10 to 100x cheaper. Possibly more.
Awesome. I'm aware Kyle have to leave. Do you have any last comments about your SIP? Like, what would you like people to know about this? Yeah.
Frankly, I think to see how people will use it, other than the things that we've mentioned here, will be interesting. But on the theme of being cheaper and more efficient, use bitwise wherever you can. I mean, you basically get 128 booleans in a single int.
Great.
So,
so just FYI, so every Friday we'll have this call. So feel free to join the call every Friday at 11 a.m. And also Hero, the other company, hosts a monthly developer call. So there are a few sort of different developer related stuff to get your teeth into if you want. And at the end of the month, every Friday, end of the month, we have a steering committee call, which is basically sort of the final approver of the SIP process, which is made of Jude and Gina and hopefully Marvin from next week. So they will be giving the community update from the sort of top level perspective. So that's also part of the SIP process. So feel free to join. Would love to see you around.
Yeah, no, I look forward to digging my heels more into the community. So thanks a lot, guys. Like Hero said, I gotta jump off family stuff, but thanks a lot, and we'll see you around.
Thanks for coming.
Nice to meet you guys in video.
Likewise.
Cheers, guys.
Oh, finally, I got muted. Thanks. Yeah, this hand thing is crazy. Yeah, so yeah, thank you. So what about from my understanding, technical and governance CABs approved it, right? So essentially, it could go into recommended, like SIP 15.
Yeah, the technical CAB has. The governance CAB, I don't know yet. I was hoping they would be on this call, but I can reach out to them.
Yeah. Okay, I'll check with Jason. So
I think I saw a message
so,
from Jason earlier that they approved it. But also from the technical CAB side, so yeah, we had our vote. We need to do the write-up. I handed it off to Jesse since I was the author. I didn't like run the vote or vote in it myself. So I think Jesse's going to handle summarizing our vote. But yeah, it passed the governance or the technical CAB.
Awesome. As long as we just have minutes from that, then we can go ahead and add the sign off, and it can transition to recommended. Cool. At which point, like, you know, we'll do the same still for SIP 15. I just need to get around to editing the sign offs. But once that's in place, we just pick some block heights for when we want SIP 15 to activate, and it can go to activation in progress as well as the SIP.
Sure. So should the CABs process, like when the technical CAB is approving it, should we modify, should we put something in the like, what is that section that like, sorry,
at the very top, like the preamble?
Yeah, is there something that we should actually modify in there to indicate our approval?
Yeah, if you just want to add like in the sign off field, like just add you can just add yourself and just say like I'm doing this on behalf of the CAB because you're the chair right now. And then we can you can do this, I can do this, doesn't matter because we're not going to disagree on it. We can just transition the status to recommended.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, thanks everyone for this process. The CAB's been amazing. Like I didn't even realize how much involvement there will be for the cabs, but yeah, there's definitely a bit for the big SIP like this. So thank you so much, Bryce, for leading the technical cab. It's pretty awesome.
And like I said, thanks, Jesse, for this time.
Cool. Yeah, a bit of a quick overview. I think most of people know where everything is. So just to sort of put it on the map, bitwise, it's in accepted stage. SIP 15 is at recommended stage. The rest other SIP like Werner SIP, all trying to work with those community guys to try and push those forward in this quarter. And a few other things people like RFC zone, you can find them on Stacks forum, and a few SIP, one SIP is waiting for SIP 15 activation as well, SIP 18. So yeah, so what, Jude, would you be able to give a quick update on where we are with SIP 15?
Sure. We're only waiting to just figure out what the activation block height will be. But the voting is already happening, so that counts towards the activation section. I believe it's SIP 15.xyz is tracking the progress of the vote. And if that goes through, then that means that, you know, we'll have a block height chosen before the vote finishes, but that's the one last thing that has to happen before the SIP can go to ratified. And the ratification of SIP 15 would also bring in SIP 18 and SIP 20. SIP 18 has been activation in progress for some time just because it's waiting for to consensus buff and from consensus buff, which are two new clarity functions to go live. And those are part of SIP 15. So you could say that SIP 18 is like the original writer SIP. And SIP 20 is just using that as precedent, as well as following the technical cab's recommendation that in the future, we try to avoid large SIPs and just have smaller targeted SIPs that activate in tandem with one another. So 3 SIPs will be going live at the same time: SIP 15, SIP 18, and SIP 20.
Cool. I think we could do. Yeah, I think we can communicate that out. I don't think many people realize that, so that could be a good one to let people know. And last week the code was complete, right? Or this week?
Yeah, it's finished. As of Tuesday, every feature that needed to be implemented had a pull request. By the end of today, I hope that every feature will be merged into the next branch. I know that people are already spinning up nodes right now to try to test it. And I know that's kind of got some mixed results, but that's to be expected. Once we can make it so that the node boots completely from Genesis to the chain tip right now, we can start making release candidates for 2.1.
And is there anything like perhaps the builders in the communities or the users in the community can do to sort of support this process? Yeah,
there is. We being, you know, the entities in the system are trying to set up a public testnet for 2.1. Running a node against that testnet would certainly be helpful, especially if it unveils problems. There's obviously the new clarity functions, the new stacking functions. We have a public test plan that I can just drop in the chat right here. Running through that test plan, trying out the new features and verifying that they work would certainly be helpful, even if it's duplicating someone else's work, just because, you know, you might use different parameters or do it at different times, and that could unveil interesting behavior that would need to be fixed. The other thing that would be fantastic is if you wanted to start building sample applications. One of the test plan items, for example, is building like a simple Oracle using to and from consensus buff, or using a taproot address to mine, or a taproot address to receive stacks, to receive Bitcoin funds. Just building proof of concepts that show that these things work. It's A, helpful to us, you know, to verify that the relevant features are working the way they should be, and B, it's also helpful to the community, because that's like like a nascent product right there that other folks could potentially use and get real value from. Like, I know that, for example, there are a couple price oracles running on Stacks right now, and they're all really expensive to use because they have to implement all of the parsing logic from the Oracle state to the to clarity values, and that unfortunately is just very costly with the current Clarity 1 functions. But with Clarity 2, you'd be able to use this native function for converting a Clarity value to and from its byte representation. So the Oracle could just post a serialized Clarity value, and then in one shot, you can just decode it. And that would be a lot cheaper and a lot faster. But just, testing things out to see that, the feature set that is shipping in 2.1 is compatible with the things that you intend to use it for is like probably the biggest, most valuable thing people can be doing.
Oh, sorry. Did I stop screen sharing?
Yep.
Oh, damn it. Sorry. I clicked on the link and then took me out. Okay, great. Yeah, we'll try to communicate those messages out to the community so they can participate, maybe to the builders, less the user, maybe the users can help test, help vote, and maybe we're trying to reach out to the builders, see if they can help with any testing. Awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry?
I was just agreeing with you.
Oh, yes, I'm sharing, right? Sorry. Guys.
Yeah, you are.
Cool. We'll just run through quickly. So the rest of the stuff. So there is actually a couple of like new SIPs coming up, which is to do with BTC transfer SIP. So please go and take a look. And another one, I wasn't quite sure whether this is a SIP or not. But it's an idea that was proposed by Larry that basically you can just use your .btc name to send Bitcoin, which is pretty cool. So yeah, go comment on Stacks forum. This is one of the many ways how you can get involved. All this feedback are really valuable. So yes, Jesse?
There we go. Okay. Yeah, so this is not a SIP. We discussed it as possibly being a SIP, I think in the last call, the room before. This is something that's come up a lot in the community at large. Larry noticed it, and I like what he's proposing in this forum. I'd like a lot of people, if possible, just to go in, make comments, see his proposal. The basics of it are he's proposing to create essentially a new library entirely. So he's not forking or PRing to the Stacks.js library or something like that. It would be a focused library just for doing what he's proposing here. So no SIP.
Awesome. So it's almost like what you guys said, right? That maybe not everything has to be a SIP. So if there are other way around creating a SIP.
Yeah, this one could have gone either way, honestly. And what he's proposing makes perfect sense. And it doesn't make sense to be a SIP the way he's proposing it. So yeah, I'm definitely in favor of what he's trying to do here.
Yeah. And so in the future, hopefully like next year, we could be looking at going to Hero Wallet and Xverse Wallet and just enter our .btc name, or enter the recipient's .btc name and be able to send that person transaction.
Yes, it can go a lot further than that, honestly. Like any wallet, the way he's proposing it is that any wallet can use this library because, the same derivation paths are used for Bitcoin that we use in Stacks. So in theory, a Bitcoin wallet could use the same library. So it's a very interesting idea. Yeah, if you don't mind, would you put the link to the forum in here?
I can't exit.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. It's still an ongoing discussion. Yeah, the idea is just to get as many people as possible just to comment and iron out the details.
I mean, although this is a SIP call and sort of the SIP resident, but I guess I can still maybe just direct people to comment on this.
Yes, please. Yeah, we'll share the link in there would be awesome.
Okay, cool. I will.
Perfect.
Thank you. On Twitter or other places. Okay.
That's in the chat right now. I just think it's hilarious. This for all those, for anyone here who's like an OG in the space, been here since like 2014, 2015, way back in the day before Blockstack even existed, which is the earlier name for Hero. The system was called One Name, and it did basically this: use a name for your crypto wallet to send and receive. We just come full circle. One Name was just too early.
We were visionary at the time. Yeah, great. Okay, let's move on. So yeah, any questions, anything anybody want to raise, put their hands up. Or, I mean, just unmute your mic or put your hands up. Yeah, so here's opportunities every session to have your voices heard.
Remember, just raise your hand in Zoom to unmute.
Okay, if not, I will quickly move on just to let people know we are actually voting. I think most of us people on this call knows about this. So there's two ways of voting. One is that if you are stacking cycle 46, 47, vote from SIP15 XYZ. If you are not stacking, vote from stx.eco, and the full instructions are in the guide. If this guide is too much, I will also be summarizing the guide into a thread on Twitter for you too. Yeah, so, and don't forget to put it on, to claim the badge and show off on your social media, like on Twitter or Discord. So, yes, so we actually got a Stacks 2.1 voting walkthrough in Stacks Discord today at 4 p.m. ET. So please jump in on Discord and check out how to vote. I'll walk you through and with experts as well. So Kaylee will be on showing the experts version. I'll be showing the web version. And next Tuesday, I will be doing another walkthrough in Experts wallet in Experts server at 6 p.m. ET. So there will be basically every week I'll be doing this sort of event to help people to come out and vote. And next, perhaps Tuesday now. So Tuesdays 11. We will have steering committee update, and hopefully we'll have Marvin as part of the steering committee as well. So please tune into these calls, and that's it. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Hero.
Thanks, Hero.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Yep. Thank you.